The number one failure that most small business owners make is that they don't understand marketing, and they're afraid of it, so they don't touch it. And that's a real challenge. So unless, I've said this, if you can't figure out marketing, don't go into business. If you're asking yourself, what is marketing after you've started your business, don't go into business. It's too late.
Welcome back.
Hello.
Wing It Podcast, GooseDigital.com. Who do we have?
Robin Kroll.
Kevin Butler.
Jeff Wiener.
Jeff Wiener, Michael Turksani. This I always forget. Michael Turksani. And Jeff, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Nice to be here.
Yeah, this is very fun, very exciting for us to have you on the show. Do we call it a show?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
What episode is it? 20?
I think it's episode 18. I want to say. We're going to screw this up, and Alex is going to be upset with us.
He will.
He's traveling, and he's going to be like, we blew that one. We blew that piece. Yeah, but no, thanks for being here. Jeff's been, I think you guys have been a client for probably going into 3 years now.
Yeah.
I have to think, right?
When we deployed Salesforce. So
Yeah.
I think it's been about 3 years.
Yeah, that's exciting. And Salesforce plus Acton customer.
Plus Acton, yeah.
That's right. So we wanted to get Jeff on because Jeff, so I'll let you do the intro, but business that you're still very much involved in, Digitcom, I would say is one of our more advanced users of kind of cloud technologies and sales as well as marketing to date. And certainly a case study that we would point to is like sort of a successful user of both the systems and this from a strategy perspective. But also maybe more recently, Jeff, if you could give us kind of the history of Digicom and kind of what you're doing now.
Sure. So I started Digitcom in 1991, so that was a long time ago. Really started it as a sole entrepreneur running it from the basement of an apartment building, and grew the company to, we had a little over 50 people. And I started primarily in sales when I first started. I was a technician by day and sales right by morning, I guess you'd say, and I actually carried and drove around with a suit in my car and would change from my suit on a sales presentation to jeans and a golf shirt when I had to do the installations. So that's how I started in 1991 and grew the business and exited in the fall of 2017 and sold the majority share of the business at that time, and I'm now a minority shareholder in that business. So I still do consulting work with Digicom, and I'm there from time to time helping out, not necessarily in marketing, but in all facets of the business, generally more strategic in nature rather than tactical. And I now spend most of my time, I've got about 5 clients that I work with, and I work very part-time with them. So it's probably an hour, maybe a week, maybe every other week, here and there, helping them on issues of scaling their business, maybe marketing, sales, how to build a sales team. And that's what I spend my time doing now. And I'm in real estate as well, so I manage my real estate with a property management company that I'm working with.
And the Kickass Entrepreneur.
I forgot about that. Yeah. So I write a blog called the Kickass Entrepreneur, and I actually grew that. There's 8,000 followers now on the blog.
Nice.
And I haven't monetized that. I've been running it now for almost seven months. I think I'm over 50 blog posts, and I grown it. Not really with any intention. I had no set goal. I just, other than just write blog posts about business and entrepreneurship for small business owners, and see if I can help people who are struggling with some of the same things that I struggled with when I was running my business.
Awesome.
Just so for the listeners can know, for the clients that you consult with, can you give a bit of a profile? They're tech companies, roughly sizes of the orgs?
Yeah, so again, keep in mind, there's only a handful of businesses. So one business that I'm particularly intrigued by right now is growing very rapidly. Actually, so the nature of the businesses are fairly varied, but one of the businesses that I'm working with is an Amazon reseller who's grown. He's now, his first year in business, about $1.5 million in revenue, grew it to 3, expecting to probably do 5 or 6. And I'm very intrigued by that because he understands the marketing, he understands the sales. He clearly does not need help in that. And for the first time in a long time, my suggestion to him, because I met him just a couple of days ago, was to slow down the marketing and sales because you're growing the business too quickly. You're not, the operation side of the business is not scaling as you're scaling the business. And his accounting is breaking. He has no idea where his inventory is. He can't keep track of his inventory levels. And I'm asking numbers, like what kind of inventory you carry. I think there's like 15 or 18,000 pieces of inventory that he's got in stock in different warehouses in China, in Canada, and in the US. And he doesn't own the warehousing, but he's moving his business off of Amazon now. I think he was 100% Amazon. Now he's 70% Amazon, moving it to his own website. So he's growing really well. And I'm helping him on the operations side. Ironically enough, operations was never my strong point. But I clearly realize the thing is breaking right now. He doesn't know how much he's making. He doesn't know where his cash flow is. So I mean, if you don't know where your cash is and cash in and out is, you've got a bit of a problem. So that's one client that I'm particularly intrigued by. The other thing that I really like is he's young. He's 26 years old.
Wow.
He's a whiz kid at marketing, and I'm enjoying that because I'm watching the growth of the business and these people that he's hiring. Another really cool thing is that the business is very virtual. He doesn't have an office. He's working out of his condo. He's got 5, now coming on to 6 employees working for him. Yeah. And they're in the Philippines, Bangladesh, one in Germany. So they're all over the world, and you don't need to have a physical office presence with people in a building. And there's pros and cons to that, clearly. But
one of our clients is the same way, 100% virtual.
Yeah.
And I think they're actually a really good example of this, is that forces over communication. Like detail around emails, chats, phone calls, and that's the way you've got to do it. Otherwise, things will fall in the cracks because you don't have water cooler moments.
Right, you miss a bit of that culture thing.
Yes,
and I'm not used to that. So I grew up in the old school. In fact, I believe you had to wear, even when I was running an entrepreneurial-based business, I'd go into the office feeling peculiar that I wasn't wearing a suit. When I went on my sales calls almost 30 years ago, I always wore a suit. So the times have changed. So I'm a little bit more of the water cooler kind of person, and I think you do lose some of that culture as you try and scale an operation that's completely virtual. But I can see the benefits and merits of doing it, because then your world of employee base is not how many people live within your geographic commute range. Sure. It's now you can hire the best person who's located anywhere in the world.
You can be skill set driven entirely.
Entirely skill set driven. And then of course there's other issues that you need to deal with, and that you're hiring for skill, of course, and motivation and all of those other things that you look for when you're hiring great staff. But your talent pool extends well beyond your geographic boundary.
Yeah. Right.
So Jeff, you mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned, operations, even though you said that's not really your strong suit, but you're also talking about culture. So, that's something else that's really important to a business, as well as the sales and the marketing. So, these are all important aspects of a business that I'm sure you, with your experience as an entrepreneur, you can have those conversations. So what are some of the other challenges that you do see with your clients?
So I would say, the scale, the types of businesses that I'm working with are generally smaller in nature. So they're probably, I'd say, fewer than 20 employees. My largest client's got 25 employees. And the number one issue that I see is marketing. But even beyond that is inability to scale a team because they don't understand leadership and they don't understand how to manage and motivate people and how to move from the tactical side of doing everything themselves and how to remove themselves from that equation and trust and manage people. So hire great people, i.e. maybe even a marketing person, and leave them alone and let them do their job. And your job and role as you scale a business goes from tactical to strategic. And being a hands-on leader to being a bit of a hands-off leader. And by its very nature, a lot of the smaller businesses come from a world of constantly wanting to micromanage. And you need to stop micromanaging and start trusting people more. And that's a big challenge, and that's a real big mind shift for a lot of young entrepreneurs. So marketing is probably the number one challenge facing most businesses. But in terms of roadblock and scalability, it's probably lack of understanding of how to lead a team and how to lead them successfully. And culture is part of that.
Yeah, and I think that's great. This actually helps us dovetail into some of the things that you've seen on the sales and marketing side of things over the last, say, 10 years, and just in terms of your own experience, as well as I know you're connected into the Pure Scale community and some of the other your other friends that would own businesses or colleagues that would have businesses that have similar challenges. When there's the leadership challenge of maybe the CEO or president needing to back off a little bit and allow that process to occur, I'd like you to talk about maybe how to pick the right leaders underneath, to find the right people that can drive those initiatives forward. Obviously, if they're too junior, you're probably putting someone in a position to fail. If they're too senior and they don't have a team underneath them, but also the second thing, maybe you could just talk to, like, how does a CEO that's looking to get into developing his sales and marketing have the right KPIs to really look to, so that and give the person enough time, but say after a year of having a team in place, what are the things that they would look for from a measurement? So maybe you could talk about like selecting your leader or that side of your people.
You touched on quite a few things. Well, you mentioned KPIs, you mentioned leadership, you mentioned growing a marketing, and you mentioned growing a sales team. So there's a lot of little topics to digest in there. Which one do you want to focus on, or do you want me to just start?
Go on leadership, build on to how would you recommend that they be able to back off? Like, what type of person would you want to have sort of on the marketing and sales side to sort of be able to feel good about that CEO pulling back a little bit?
So marketing and sales, I'm going to take exception to, and I'll tell you why. Okay. So here's my belief is that as a small business owner, and I've challenged many entrepreneurs on this, and I still fight for it, and I believe very firmly in what I'm about to tell you, is that no matter what your skill is and no matter what your experience is, if you come into a business and you're a software coder and you're really good, a lot of those coders believe if I build it, they will come. And they don't come. And they think, I got the best software in the world, but I'm not selling any of it. Why? I need a salesperson, or I need someone in marketing. How do you do marketing? And they don't ask themselves that question. And I'd say the number one failure that most small business owners make is that they don't understand marketing, and they're afraid of it, so they don't touch it. And they continue developing the most awesome piece of software that the world's ever seen, hoping for a unicorn that will get bought out for $50 or $100 million just because the software's amazing. And that's a real challenge. So unless, I've said this, if you can't figure out marketing, don't go into business. If you're asking yourself, what is marketing after you've started your business, don't go into business. It's too late. Figure it out. Figure out the marketing before you start, not after you start.
I feel like that's actually part of the the entrepreneur, the Kickass Entrepreneur kind of guidance that you're giving these younger entrepreneurs. And like you said, it could be young by age, or just the fact that you're a younger business. You're not young. You're not a young person. You're in your first few years of business. That the entrepreneurial wave has almost hit us over the last sort of 10 years, where there's been this inflated expectation where, if I just start a business, I can be a quote unquote entrepreneur, that it's going to be okay and I'm going to be able to just have a ton of success. And I think you're going to see a lot of people kind of get slammed down, or have the expectation kind of drain, where they're like, you know what, I didn't think about my sales. I just thought that I could be a tech guy and try to raise some money.
And so what's wrong with, and I often wonder, you tell me, are you an entrepreneur if you're running a $700,000 business, you're working from the basement of your house, you have no staff, you've built a nice .com, whatever, and you've got a blog and you're bringing in affiliate marketing revenue, etc. Are you an entrepreneur?
Are you an entrepreneur? I mean, I think if you define an entrepreneur as being able to go out and make your own amount of money, I guess a small business, I think there's a couple of things in there. I think if you're a one-man show, there's a level of entrepreneurship there. I think that there's a totally another lens where you're building a team and having a real business.
And that's a distinction. So are you an entrepreneur are you a solopreneur? You're happy. Right. You're making $700,000, and it's pretty much all going into your pocket, other than your hosting expenses and maybe some studio equipment, things like that.
That sounds really good.
You can have great life. You can work from wherever you want. Want to go to Bali, sit on the beach?
But you're not an entrepreneur. You're not a business operator.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But is there a difference between like an entrepreneur and maybe like a startup org?
So is there, of course. And if you're taking the perspective, there's not, and you call yourself an entrepreneur, you're making a lot of money, you're doing really well. You're making that kind of money, you figured it out. But a lot of those people aspire to, and there's nothing wrong with that, building it to $3 or $5 or $7 million business. And that's where some of the challenges come into play. Now, for a business like that, they've kind of already figured it out. A lot of other people start up a business, small entrepreneur, they have an awesome idea. Their friends have said, you make the best muffins in the world. I love them. Why don't you start your own shop? And they go open their own shop and you realize they have no idea what they're doing. They make really good muffins.
Right.
Or you made a really good piece of software. But just because you've made a really good piece of software doesn't mean the world is going to, unless you've got the cure to cancer or you've got the anti-aging pill and the people will literally fight to go grab what you've got. If you have that, you're awesome. You're going to retire a billionaire. But alternatively, if you don't have that, it's going to be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
And conversely, like the most successful businesses don't always have the best product, right?
Yeah.
Correct. So you've got, what I've always said is you need to figure out the marketing. And what that means as far as I'm concerned is understand your product, but then understand how do you market, how do you build a marketing stack, and what are all the pieces involved in doing that. And so I ran a marketing team and I ran a company, but one of the things I wanted to challenge myself with was to see, so I wrote a book last spring and I said to myself, well, let's see if I can sell it and how will I sell it. So I started a website. And for my own purposes, I got very tactical with this. How many books can I sell? Can I build landing pages? How do you do this? And so I got to a very tactical level to actually see if I can figure out all the mechanics of the pieces that are involved in doing it. It's something I hadn't done in a long time.
Sure.
And the perspective that I gained while I was doing that, because I kind of figured it out, was that if you're an entrepreneur going into business and you haven't figured out all of those pieces, it doesn't mean you have to do them all, but it means you have to understand all of the pieces that are involved in marketing before you launch a business. And if you understand how to do Facebook advertising, great. Doesn't mean you have to do it, but it means you should understand the mechanics of what's involved in it.
Right, okay.
You should understand what is a landing page, what is conversion rates, why does it matter if I manage and monitor my KPIs, how do I get someone to convert on my page? Does it make a difference if I change colors of buttons? So if you can figure some of those things out as you're starting, you understand the dynamics and the pieces involved of what's required to build marketing. Once you're there, you can go back to building your business and then let someone else take over, maybe a Goose Digital, but you understand all the mechanics and the pieces that are required to make a business successful.
So that's interesting. What you're really saying, and I'd like to maybe switch into the non-startups and to say, and your experience is probably with companies that are, I would say, are more tech companies that have, in our world, they tend to be more mature generally. They already have a stack, and everyone's trying to figure out their next level of marketing. But generally speaking, they've done a lot of things. They're not digital beginners as we would refer to in our model. But I want to switch to say a larger company. So let's say they're a $50 or $75 million mid-sized business, and they don't have much of a traditional marketing. So highly sales-led org. Maybe they're in manufacturing or logistics or any one of these other markets that isn't tech. Now you've got a CEO that's like, great, I need to start marketing. I need to figure this out. It's going to be digital, likely. I mean, that would be the advice and guidance. So what you're saying is that individual probably needs to recognize that there are a lot of aspects to this. Now, he's probably not the guy that's going to go roll up his sleeves and play around in Facebook necessarily. What would be the advice or guidance to an organization like that? Let's say they've got 25 salespeople, they've grown to 75 million, great business, 40 years. How do they make the transition to sort of a more digitally led, a more marketing kind of rounded out approach?
My sense is that, so if you're so I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs from $1 million in revenue to as recently as 2 days ago, $100 million in revenue. And I'm often surprised, maybe not, that the number one issue that most of these companies deal with, and most entrepreneurs are dealing with a lot of issues when they're running their business, HR and sales and strategy and staffing and marketing.
Always
culture.
Culture.
Yeah.
But the number one thing that I see consistently and brought up in peer groups that I talk to, that they struggle with is marketing consistently, whether it's 2 million or even smaller, or even 100 million. I was shocked at the guy the other day saying we're struggling with marketing still. So it doesn't mean that they haven't figured out marketing. Because if you're running $75 million
You're doing
firm,
something,
you
right?
understand clearly, you understand messaging, you understand how to build a brand. I mean, that's all part of marketing, right? A brand is, a lot of people think a logo is marketing. So it's part of it, a logo is part of your brand, but it's much deeper than that. So you figured some of it out, but they're struggling with the next level. How do you go to three? When you're at 75 million, you're looking to a 150 to $200 million business. And honestly, I can't profess to really know how to do that because I've never done it. But when you're at that level, you're struggling with still bringing sales through the door, unless you're a not-for-profit organization. In fact, they even need to scale their business. Your number one issue is, how do I bring more customers to the table? How do I close more business? How do I hire better salespeople? Now, you become a leader, so you're not dealing at the very tactical level of getting in and writing code for an HTML code for your sales page, but you need to have the right people sitting at the top who understand marketing stack, marketing campaign, branding, and logistics, and how to put all of that together. And people, they struggle with that, whether you're $75 million business or a $2 million business. It's from what I've seen, the number one struggle that people have.
So maybe we could build on that and just, if we said, because I want to come back to the KPI piece, because I know that you brought that up, but what would you say, why is that? Like, what would you say are some of the key drivers? Is it that things have changed so much in the last 5 years in terms of the tactical side of marketing?
What's the first thing that comes to mind if I told you you're running pick a number, $5 million firm, you want to grow to 10 million? Because everyone has aspirations to grow their business, as opposed to saying, yeah, it's 5 million, I don't care, I'll stay at $5 million for the next 20 years, it's a cash cow business, I'm good with that. Very few people say that, because as soon as you stop the attitude of I'm going to scale my business, as soon as you stop, your business starts
dying.
So the first thing that happens when you say I'm going to scale my business, I'm at $5 million, I want to go to $10 million. What do you need to do? I need to increase my sales. How am I going to increase my sales? Hire more salespeople. My salespeople need leads. How am I going to give them leads? Start with the marketing.
Right.
That's where you go. Okay.
Circular,
Operations piece is a different part of it. We talked about that a little bit earlier. But the first thing you think about is I need more sales. How do I get more sales? I need to do the marketing. What do I need to do to marketing? My marketings may be broken, because if I knew what to do to build a $10 million business, I'd be doing it. What am I doing today that I shouldn't be doing? Or what am I doing today that I should be doing more of, or a better job of?
Are you seeing in these orgs that are, maybe mid-size and potentially some of the bigger, smaller ones that you're working with, are they, you walk into some of these guys that you're talking to, or girls that you're talking to, that are running these great businesses, and they're like, we're still struggling with marketing. Is part of that a leadership problem underneath them? Like, are they still having a hard time finding the right VP of marketing?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
And keeping in mind, you're scaling. So you're running a $75 million outfit. You have a marketing team. You probably have 5 or 6 people on a marketing team.
And a tech stack and a bunch of stuff going on.
But what is your marketing team doing? And one of the things that I've definitely seen in the last couple of years is what's expected of a senior level marketer. And it's very hard to find somebody who has all these different skill sets. And that's as opposed to a CEO or a sales leader. What's expected of a marketer has changed so much over the last couple of years.
A lot more, because
and finding
marketing
the right
is
person, right?
Sure, because a lot of the things that's required to build a sales team, I may have to rethink what I'm about to say, but they're a little more stagnant.
Blooper.
Building a sales team's probably more. And look, there's technology involved. You want Salesforce. You want to automate your quote generation tools. You need your KPIs and all that stuff. But marketing is changing at a much faster pace. With the marketing tools and everything else that's involved. And the thing is, when you're running that $75 million or $5 million person, you have a great person in the front. And if you're the president and you're trusting your person who's at 5 million and they're not improving their skills and they're not learning and challenging themselves and getting outside of the box that they're sitting in and talking to their own marketing peer groups, and they're not pumping new information into their head, they become stagnant. So as the leader of that organization, if you're the president and you're working with someone who's at that level, who's not experiencing and trying new things, who's not reading books, going to trade shows, publications, and all that other stuff, they're slowly dying, and your business is going to die along with it. So the expression, Wayne Gretzky expression, skate to where the puck is going, not to where the puck is at, holds true in marketing especially. You want to hire not 5 places away. But you want to hire someone who understands how to build 100, you're 75 million. Hire someone who's built and run $150 million marketing
Oh,
and
thank you for
business.
saying that. Yeah.
If you're going to hire someone who knows the stuff, they're going to get the job done, but they're not going to take you to the next level. So don't be surprised if your business isn't growing, is because you're hiring the people that have done what you want them to do, but they can't bring new ideas to the table. And if they're not bringing new ideas to the table, you shouldn't be surprised that your business isn't growing. It's not growing because you may be challenging your people. You may be a great leader, but if they're not challenging themselves, they're not growing into their role.
We've seen this. We've seen this a lot in marketing. I would say you hit a nail on the head where the thinking is 5 years ago. So like it's not necessarily bad, but it's not what's going on today. And some of the models that are being put in place, it's like that's great. And you did have that $100 million run, but that was 5 years ago. And we actually need to be thinking about some of these other things now that are happening. Like even at Goose 3 years ago, we were running a certain style of B2B lead gen on Twitter and LinkedIn that is completely different today. In fact, there's elements of those systems that don't even exist anymore. You can't even do certain types of campaigns on those networks anymore for B2B. Now, they've got a whole bunch of other cool new stuff, and it's probably better than what it was 3 years ago. But my point is that if you were if you had that experience 3 years ago, maybe you went off and did something else, now you're coming back in, even as a practitioner, you're done. I mean, you have to be moving forward with these things.
And it's iterative, and there's a learning experience, and it's about failure. So if you're not failing, you're doing something wrong.
You're not trying hard enough.
Essentially, because marketing is about success, but it's also about failure. So you can't expect to try 10 new ideas, 10 new software packages, and expect that 10 of them are going to work. 2 of them are going to work. And how well do they work? So you need to understand your KPIs.
But there's a big value in the learnings from things that weren't successful.
Fail.
Like that's a strong word, but I know what you mean. But it's like this idea of like, what can you extract from that? Now you know something.
So let's move into the KPIs, and then I think we'll wrap it, because we've been on. This has been very good, and I'm sensitive of your time, Jeff. But let's talk about what to look for, because you're talking about failure, which is great. You're talking about testing and learning and giving a business enough time. So let's put a couple of KPIs on the table for a business that, for their leadership, from a marketing and just to know what's working and how to think about it. At the very least, how to think about it. Like, should I pull the plug on this? It's been 6 months. I hired a person. I'm doing some things, and I'm just going to pull the plug because I don't understand it. How can we help them understand what to look for?
So what is your lead acquisition cost costing you? For every customer that you're bringing to the door, how much are you spending? And if you don't know the answer to that question, stop. Think about it. Is my Google pay-per-click or Bing advertising working? I don't know. I'm spending $5,000 a month. Is it working? I don't know. I got leads. Where are they coming from? I don't know. Are they converting? I don't know. But phones are ringing. Well, that's a problem. And you're not going to scale your marketing. So every single thing you do in marketing, you need to understand. And you need to understand the cost, what it's costing you and what it's producing for your bottom line. Gross margin, net margin. So spending $5,000 in marketing on pay-per-click, how many leads are you bringing in? Okay, let's make an easy number. 500 leads. Okay, that'd be really good, by the way. Each lead. So,
We'd like that.
so you understand your cost per lead, how many leads are converting, and if you're selling a widget that's gonna, selling it for $5 and making $2.50, it's gonna be tough to pay off that. If you're selling a widget for $10,000 and you're making $5,000, now you know the contribution of every lead to your bottom line.
Yes.
And if you understand that, you understand how you turn the crank. If I turn the crank just a bit and I go from 5,000 to 6,000, if I know that each lead cost me $10 and it produces $50 toward my contribution and bottom line, gross margin or net margin, and you understand your fixed costs toward overall running your business, for every extra dollar that I spend in marketing, I know how much I'm getting back in return. And if you're spending money on marketing and you don't know the answer to what is marketing's contribution toward my top line and toward my bottom line, if you don't understand that, stop doing what you're doing. Until you can understand that, you're throwing away your money.
So what I'm hearing is, then that's great. That's exactly what I wanted you to say, that from potentially where some of these organizations are struggling, even potentially some larger ones, is within their leadership being able to produce that style of understanding for the business, and be able to, to be able to see that plus maybe some of the leading indicators of success, where it's like we're gaining success here. It's not quite like maybe our costs are really high because we're working through a process over 6 months to get it down.
Yes.
But at least the CEO or the president, whoever's running that initiative, can see, okay, now I can understand exactly how that's going to go, and we're going to give it another.
And the challenge is a lot of CEOs hear other CEOs say, you got to do marketing, and what tool are you using? Pick a
Right.
tool. HubSpot,
Pick a tool.
Pardot. Oh, okay, I got to go buy Pardot or HubSpot. Okay, I bought HubSpot. I gave it to my marketing person. Marketing person deployed it. And, I don't know, we got some campaigns going. And they seem to be doing okay. Just because you have a hammer, everything isn't a nail. So deploying HubSpot doesn't mean you're going to be successful.
Yes.
You need to understand, if a CEO isn't asking the question of their marketing team, how much is this costing me? And what is its contribution to the bottom line? Stop doing what you're doing. Again, and I get back to that point. So if the CEO doesn't know enough to ask that question, CEO needs to come back and study marketing a bit. Understand it's not just HubSpot you're buying, but it's where your lead's going, who's doing the quotes, how are the quotes taking that information over. It should all be integrated. And the bigger you get, the more important it becomes that you have an ERP holistic package where you can understand A to Z. The phone rings. How did you get to the phone ringing? To the business is closed, to the sale has now been completed and installed or sold or shipped or whatever it may be, to what is my contribution afterwards on a contributing, for example, if it's a SaaS-based business and you're going to keep your average tenure of your customers 2 years, what's your attrition rate? You need to know all of that.
Stuff, yeah.
And if you can understand that, and I watched my brother-in-law build a business from a one-man show to a $500 million operation, and I watched him do it in 4 years.
Whoa.
And I saw him do it, and he took me in. I said to him, Rob, how'd you do that? And he said, come in, I want you to speak to my marketing person. And that's when the light bulb went off. It was probably 2011. And that's when the light bulb moment went off for me, because he explained it. And he didn't show me tactically all of the pieces. He explained what I'm telling you today.
Okay.
He said, if I turn the crank by $2,000, and I'm making that number up because the sales were a hell of a lot bigger, more than that. Sorry, I don't know if I can say that word on this podcast.
You can pretty much anything goes. Yeah.
So when he told me that, I'll tell you how many phone calls I'm going to get tomorrow, and I know how many people I need to have answering the calls. I'll tell you how much what it's going to do to my shipping department, and how many people I need in shipping tomorrow. If I double my spend tomorrow, I know exactly what's going to happen. Like, how do you know that? He says, I understand everything from A to Z. He understood it at a fractions of a percentage.
Wow.
And when he said that, fractions
That's so
of a
impressive.
percentage,
It's incredible.
I said to myself,
I
if
gotta
he can
get there.
understand that to fractions of a percentage, the light bulb went off for me.
Yeah.
Marketing isn't about having a great logo and building nice podcasts and it's about what is its contribution to something. Understand it. Okay, fractions of a percentage, you've got to be doing big numbers, but understand a KPI.
Yeah.
When you understand that, and you know that if I increase or double my marketing spend or double my sales spend, what is its contribution to my bottom line? When you can understand that, you can keep going. Double. And you have to deal with your operations side, which is always a challenge. But if you can do that, I can show you how to scale any business.
And Jeff, is one of the biggest challenges not knowing, and I'm not even going to use the word KPI because I think something happened before, is what's the question? What's the strategy? What do I need to know? And then you go to the next step of saying, I'm going to build out the KPIs.
So you get back one step further. What's your 5-year goal? Most business owners don't even ask that question. Where are you going? I don't know. I'm just growing my business. Where are you trying to go to? It happens all the time. I have this conversation. In fact, with a different client and a very good client, I want to double my business. Okay, how much are you doing today? $3 million. So you want to grow double, $6 million, and how long? 3 years. Okay, you want to be a $6 million business in 3 years. What are you doing differently to get there? I don't know, selling more. No. If you want to be at $6 million, which means you're going to double in 3 years, let's open up an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheets document, and we've got to start to work that backwards. Doubling your sales means, what's it going to do to your operations team? How many people do you have to have in marketing? How many people do you have to have in sales? How much is each lead costing you? What can a salesperson bring in? So what can a salesperson bring? $500,000 a year. Okay, that means you need to have 6 salespeople to do that. If you hire 6 salespeople, what's your failure rate on your salespeople? 50%. You need to hire 12 people in the next 3 years to close an extra $3 million
There's probably
a
a
year in
ramp-up
revenues.
period, yeah.
My next question is this one-time sale or recurring sale? What's your goal? Well, I want to retire in, pick a number, 10 years. How much do you want to have in your bank account? So if you want to retire in 10 years, you want to sell your business, You want to start to develop an element of recurring business revenue in your business, because that's what's going to sell. If you don't have recurring revenue in your business, it's really tough to sell. So build a recurring revenue business. And if you do that, you start to build the valuation of your business and you'll improve it. But let's get back to the KPI piece. Said to him, you want to go from 3 million to 6 million. We actually started to do that math. And the goal that I gave him a project, this was a month ago, I'm going to see him tomorrow. And I said, your goal is build that Excel spreadsheet, and then I'll tell you where you went wrong, where you went right. Let's talk through that. But at least have the spreadsheet.
Yes.
So with the spreadsheet in hand, we could now be very tactical. How many salespeople
You
do I
could
need
tweak
to hire?
those numbers and see where they go.
Exactly. So if I know that my failure rate is 50%, you're being realistic. If you hire a salesperson, there's a 50% chance they're not going to work out. If you hire a marketing person, there's a 50% chance they're not going to work out. So with each person, and what kind of marketing person you want to hire is a different question altogether. But as you scale that, put it into an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, I'm going to hire one salesperson this spring, one this fall, one in the winter, one next spring. Well, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, but you're going to make money doing it. Because if one sales rep's contribution to your top line is $500,000 and you're paying them $50,000 a year and they're going to get $25,000 a year commission at $75,000, what's your gross margin? If the president or the CEO says, I don't know, you have a problem.
It's a problem,
What's your
right?
gross margin? Okay, I don't understand gross margin. Okay, that's fair enough. Let's talk about what gross margin means. Let's talk about what your expense variable is, and let's understand your income statement. You need to get that. When you get that and you put this into a sheet, you know what levers you need to turn in order to scale your business.
That's amazing.
Wow. I've learned a lot.
Yeah. No, I think that, I think, Jeff, this has been really helpful
great.
because I think we're in, I would say mostly mid-sized companies that are really struggling to put together a marketing. I'm not a big surprise to you, a marketing plan. Oftentimes they have very little marketing, a lot of sales. So they're putting not only marketing in place, but a digital program in place. And that guidance, to these leaders that, it does start with a strategy. You do need to have a vision where your business is going to go and what do you think that's going to be, a doubling and a work back and how that's going to work. And then a KPI structure where they can understand how things are performing. Those are a lot of the same things that's what we put in place and what we try to ensure is in place when we walk into a business. Because if it's not, then we would clearly be, on the chopping block, so to speak.
So here's what I have, my advantage to, now you're running a beautiful business, you're in the marketing game, but people call me and they say, I want help with my marketing. I'm not Goose Digital. I never want to be a Goose Digital. I have no interest in doing that. So I ask them the question, my first question is, how's your business doing? Well, I don't look at my income statement that often. Let me ask you, how much profit did you make last year? $200,000. Okay, that's a decent amount. Are you paying yourself a salary? Yes. And how much of that $200,000 have you actually put into a holding company? What's a holding company? How much of that $200,000 have you actually put somewhere? I haven't taken any of that money out, and I don't know where my profit is. So I ask the question, if you're making $200,000 a year or 300 or whatever the number is, what are you doing with your profits? So the advantage I have is coming back to the entrepreneur and saying, you're not ready to work on your marketing.
Right.
Let's
take a step back here. Get your house in order.
Business
Get your
in
business
order.
organized. Right.
They don't understand their income statement. They don't understand their balance sheet. In fairness, entrepreneur didn't scale the business. They're not an accountant by trade.
No.
So I'm going to say, let's get you to a point where you're working with accrued monthly income statements, where you understand and you're doing proper accrued-based accounting. You're looking at it monthly. You're looking at cash flow daily. You understand how much you're making every month, and you've set up the right corporate structure to lead you to profitability.
Yes.
Now you're ready for marketing.
Yes.
It took me 6 months. The guy that I'm meeting with tomorrow, took me 6 months to get to the point where I said, now we're ready to work on doubling your business. Because when he called me, he says, I want help with marketing. We haven't touched marketing. We're not there yet. If he'd called Goose Digital, you wouldn't have had that conversation.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Now I'm ready to say, I'm not going to say his first name, but Bob, let's call him Bob. Hey, Bob, I got a company for you. I think you should call it Goose Digital.
Right.
He's ready for that. He's ready to take the leap into marketing. When he first called me, he wasn't ready, didn't understand.
Well, it's great. It's definitely hugely valuable, as an entrepreneur myself and, this is my third kind of real business now. I can see how that type of advice and guidance, if I had that type of stuff in my first business, but just generally helping entrepreneurs through that process and getting set up, getting a house in order, and then moving forward. So, Jeff, we we appreciate your business, even though I know you're a majority shareholder in Digicom.
Minority.
Minority in Digicom. But it's been a great opportunity to work with you guys and with you specifically. And thanks for being on the podcast today.
My pleasure. And congratulations on the success of your business as well.
Oh, you
Thank
too. This is
you.
great. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, nice meeting with you guys.
Thank you.
Under the water, I need your